Hi, Avril here from Access Credit Union. We are delighted to once again sponsor the Star Sports podcast. As part of our range of new business loans, we now offer Cultivate Farm Finance, the farmer-friendly loan package. With a Cultivate loan, farmers in West Cork can benefit from the local decision-making and personal service offered by Access Credit Union. To find out more, go to accesscu.ie/cultivate, call me on 085 268 2727 or 028 21883, where a member of our team will be happy to help you with your inquiry.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star, and I'm joined as always by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose the credit union, choose local, choose community. On this week's show, we're chatting to Cork ladies football manager Shane Ronayne. Cork take on Mayo in the All-Ireland quarter-final at Cusack Park in Ennis this Saturday, and we'll chat to Shane about that game as well as the financial challenges facing women inter-county players in light of the expenses revelations that have come to light in recent weeks. Later on the show, we'll be joined by Denis Hurley of the Echo to discuss the departure of Kieran Kingston as Cork hurling supremo and what to expect from his successor, Pat Ryan. Now, Kieran, we're not going to waste too much time at the top here because we want to jump straight into your conversation with Shane Ronayne. But before we do, we should probably bring listeners and viewers up to speed with the expenses issue that has caused anger and outrage within ladies football and camogie in recent weeks. And it all stems from an article in the 42.ie by Sinead Farrell, which featured West Cork's own dual star Libby Coppinger outlining the financial burden she places herself under in order to represent her county.
Yeah, it was a great piece on the 42 last week, and like you said, it shone a light on a very pressing issue in GA, and especially in women's GA, which is ladies football and camogie. So the article in question just highlighted that on average, I think it's nearly €1,450 for it costs players to play inter-county football right now, and you got to put that into context. Whereas men's GA players get 65 cents per mile in terms of to cover their mileage and mileage expenses and travel costs. In ladies football and camogie, that's not the case. They don't get any mileage expenses. So you think of someone like Libby Coppinger from Cahill, the St. Columb's player who took part in the survey. In 1 month alone, she travelled over 1,800 miles. And that's an incredible amount in 1 month alone. And she's a dual player, so she's a starter on both the Cork ladies football and Cork camogie teams. And think of that trip from Cahill up to the city a couple times a week for training. The camogie team trains in Castle Road. The footballers train in Clodove. So it's putting a huge burden on the likes of Libby Coppinger. And she'll be the first to say, and she has said, because I was talking to her about this since, that she's not the only one. She's so many Cork players are in the same boat, but so many players in counties all around the county and all around the country are in the same boat too. So what they're looking for is, it's not too much. Like she goes, you shouldn't be out of pocket playing for your county. And I think that's a basic, really, kind of. She was alarmed, she said, when she looked back at the figures, when she kept track of her figures for that 1 month in terms of her mileage and her different expenses in terms of nutrition and so on. She admitted she was alarmed by what it came to. Last year, okay, in the ladies football and so on, in camogie, they did get a government grant. They did get a grant for the first time ever, but she checked back at her figures. She got a grant for €963 to cover 2021. But when you think about what she does in 1 month alone this year, like it's just not enough to cover it. So they're just hoping that something will be done, that by shining a light on this issue again, that someone somewhere can help. that obviously has to come from the powers that be that the government or even the Camogie Association and the LGFA themselves. But the problem therein is that they probably don't have the resources that the GA do. And that almost comes back again, Jack, to the conversation about this amalgamation we spoke about for years, putting them all under the one umbrella so they can all be treated the same. But like, we've started that process, but that's going to take a long, long time for that to come to fruition. So for now, it's hard to see how it's going to change. It's hard to see how ladies footballers, the Camogie players, won't be left out of pocket playing for their county, but at least the conversation is had.
Okay, Kieran, well, let's not waste any more time. Let's jump straight into your chat with Shane Ronayne to ask him about those challenges and also to preview the All-Ireland quarter-final against Mayo in Ennis this Saturday.
Before we talk about matters on the field, just want to touch base with you, Shane, on matters off the field. There was a story on the 42 last week that featured Cork dual star Libby Coppinger, and it highlighted how much intercounty players are spending on average a month to play intercounty football. And it showed too that Libby spent 45 hours commuting to games in 1 month. That was just one example. So just to get your thoughts, Shane, because let's say when it comes to what female intercounty players are spending to play intercounty football, and we have to remember too that the LGFA and the Camogie Association, they don't cover fuel costs in terms of mileage expenses. So that's a big burden on players, especially now with the rising cost of fuel. So when you consider a county like Cork, geographically so big, so many players are putting in so much to play for their county, probably, like I said, out of pocket. So where do you stand in it? Like, what do you think can or should be done to help players out?
I suppose, look, it's I've seen both sides of it there in the last 2 years, Kieran. I was involved with Waterford last year, so you can see that, you know, everybody was getting expenses with Waterford last year, both players and management, for whatever mileage they were doing. And that was paid centrally, which is a new thing in the last couple of years with the GA. Everything went through Croke Park. So look, I suppose the big difference is there's maybe a pool of money there in the GA that's not there in ladies football and Camogie yet, you know, and I suppose maybe that shortfall, maybe the government can do something about it or whatever, because I don't think actually the money is probably within the county boards, within, you know, in many counties, I would say, to pay expenses for players, because it is a huge expense every year with regards expenses. I know that from the men's game. So, but it is disappointing, and I suppose the girls, they are putting in huge effort. And look at, as you said, the geographical size of Cork, even for myself, like, you know, we train a lot of times in Clodove, like that's 160k round trip for me, you know, and there's players, I suppose, doing that again from the likes of Claire O'Shea, coming up from Beara and things like that, you know, Anya Terry. I know Anya is living in the city at the moment, but, you know, she would have been commuting from Beara as well. And I suppose girls coming up even from college and things like that. So I suppose we tried to make it as less as possible for that during the year, that we didn't make players come back from college and things like that. So you're very aware of that. And I think it's something that I think that the game has to strive towards, that the players are being looked after properly. And I suppose, look, it's another thing that might keep a few more of them at home instead of going out to Australia and things like that as well. If they are being, I suppose, compensated for what they're doing here, because they are putting in the same effort as the guys. And I think, you know, if it can come down along the lines, and, you know, maybe look, get involved with fuel companies, or, you know, especially the way things are gone at the moment, you know, we can all see it ourselves, the increased cost of diesel and petrol and things like that. So look, hopefully in the next couple of years, I suppose there can be money aside, put aside maybe for expenses, because it is a huge burden on players, and I suppose we are very aware of that, and we try to minimize, I suppose, the times we're meeting during the week as well. You know, you could be meeting 4 or 5 times a week for whatever, but we try and minimize that. And even our gym sessions with a lot of our girls who are traveling far away, we get them to do it at home, because look, whatever about the tiredness element and I suppose keeping them fresh, there is a huge burden on their pockets, because you know, especially girls who are students or maybe who are just starting off in jobs, you know, they have the income isn't massive. So we're very aware of it. And I suppose, look, it's something that I would hope in the next few years that both ladies football and Camogie can maybe get a handle on, and hopefully can improve it for the girls. You know, but I do believe at the moment that I suppose you know, I think there's a perception out there that there's plenty of money in ladies football and Camogie. There's not, and I know that from, you know, when you're dealing with the boards and things like that. And it's not that we're left without anything, but you know, I know that the money is tight, and it hasn't got the same resources that the GAA have at the moment. So hopefully in the next few years they will be able to build up their resources and that the players can be looked after.
Hopefully this is kind of shining a light too on just, I suppose, the links that the female inter-county players do go to play for their counties. But you mentioned there about Australia, the AFL. Obviously Cork lost Erica O'Shea. She's gone off for her adventure down under. Considering so many GA players are making that switch now, is it a worry for inter-county managers going forward, Shane, that it's becoming more of an option for players to go down under to play the AFL there? And especially now with the changing season in Australia, it is cutting across the inter-county season here at home as well.
Yeah, look, it obviously is, Kieran, and I think I don't really like the narrative out there that we should be I suppose delighted for all these players that are going out there, because there's a huge effort being put in by their clubs and by inter-county as well. Like, you know, I don't begrudge any player for going to Australia because it's a huge opportunity and wonderful, but obviously there has to be disappointment there on behalf of, you know, the inter-county management and their club management, that you're going to be losing seriously talented players. And I suppose there's nothing we can. Well, look, we've never tried to. I've experienced it with Tipperary and now with Cork. You know, and I think it's going to become an increasing thing in the game, Kieran, because obviously it's expanded out there now, and you know you don't have the opportunity to play both. So it is a worry, like, and I you know, as I said, I don't like the narrative that we're meant to be absolutely delighted about. I can't see how anybody could be delighted about losing a brilliant player. Obviously, on a personal level, you're delighted for them to get the opportunity, but from a team's point of view, you're going to be disappointed. It's only a natural reaction, and I don't like that reaction out there that we're meant to be delighted about it, because you can't be. But on a personal level, I'm delighted for Erica. I'm delighted to see all those Irish girls getting great opportunities. I know lots of them. You know, so look, it's wonderful for them that way, but it's very disappointing from a ladies football point of view. And I think it's a worrying thing from a ladies football point of view as well. And the fact that a lot of our star players are going out there, you know, that decreases I suppose the markability of ladies football. And you know, I think I saw somebody tweeting about it during the week. If it was happening in the men's game, there'd be uproar if all our stars were going. So I think it's, you know, it's something that's going to have to be looked at. How do we combat it? I don't know, because obviously we can't offer players contracts here, but maybe we can make it a little bit more enticing to stay at home, you know, with the expenses and things like that. But look, it is a wonderful opportunity for them, and I don't begrudge any player going out there.
When you heard Erica was heading off down under, so was it kind of the decision made early in the year, so just to progress without her in terms of developing the panel, not to have Erica involved in, I suppose, through the league and the Munster Championship, then all of a sudden you're losing one of your top players from that half back line. So did you just make a decision early on, Shane, to say, okay, Erica, best of luck, but we're going to progress down this road instead?
Yeah, I suppose maybe it came to light maybe in March or so, Kieran, that Erica was being approached by different clubs. So I suppose we looked at it and helped her, you know, make that decision herself. And, you know, and I've said it already that we parked the football side of things and probably looked at maybe other things that might, you know, come into play, and you know, about her lifestyle and about education, things like that. And I suppose once the league finished, you know, it was probably back there at the end of April, Erica finally made her decision, you know, what she was going to do. Was we had kept it quiet. A lot of the players in the squad wouldn't have known anything about it because we didn't want the distraction. And, you know, Erica and myself agreed with that. And, you know, in some of the management wouldn't have been aware of everything that was going on. So, but once Erica made her decision, I think we decided, and she agreed, that I suppose the best course of action was maybe 3 weeks before the Munster Championship, that we better cut ties, because I suppose we had to, replace Erica on the team, and, you know, and get players ready for that. Like, we could have played Erica, I suppose, in the Munster Championship. You know, she only went to Australia last week, so she could have played maybe 3 championship games first, but then, you know, you're trying then mid-season in the championship to replace a quality player like that. So I suppose we had to take the best interest of the team and the panel, you know, into consideration. So, and in fairness to Erica, she understood the decision, and the players understood the decision as well. And look, to be honest with you, we've just parked it. It's a bit like, you know, losing a player through injury. There's nothing we could do about it. And, you know, we always speak about the controllables, and, you know, Erica had made her decision. We support her decision. We're not in any way against her decision. And, you know, we've always said to her the door is open, but we had to put it to one side very quickly, Kieran. And I think, in fairness, you know, we've been lucky with the likes of Laura O'Mahony there, you know, who I suppose has had you know, a difficult couple of years with regards injury. And it's like having a new player back. So we replaced Erica with, you know, with another young player who's got loads of potential. And I think Laura has slotted into Erica's position. and is playing some fantastic football. And look, we're delighted with that. But I think that's the quality of player in Cork. I suppose we just had to get on with it and park it. You can't, as I said, you can't control it. So we did make that decision there at the end of April. And I think we've moved on from it, and it's not something we talk about, not in any bad way or anything like that. It's just we and I suppose the environment we're in, we just have to move on and get and focus on what we have and the players we have at our disposal. But I think we have a very, very strong squad, shown by what Laura can do, and there's other players who can slot in for us as well.
Just shows too, Shane, that the show must go on, and the show has gone on, because Cork now All-Ireland quarter-final against Mayo this weekend, coming off the back of a good group campaign, 2 good wins against Donegal and Waterford, which follow on from the Munster Championship win. So considering that the league didn't go according to plan, I suppose, earlier in the year, but there are mitigating factors for that, because new management, trying new players in different positions and almost trying to get a sense of the squad and I suppose the style for the year ahead. But how pleased have you been with the response of the players even since the league and since that break you had between the league and the championship?
Yeah, look, Kieran, I suppose it worked out. It worked out fairly well for us, really. Like, we could have actually made a league semi-final very easy. We were very unlucky the first day against Meath, I suppose, in our first game. And when you look at the Meath team that went out that day and the team that we played compared to what we're putting out in the championship now, it's vastly different. Whereas Meath's team was very settled. And I suppose, look, the 6 weeks break between the end of the league group stage to the first game in Munster, I think gave us a brilliant opportunity to work with the players, try and get our stamp, on the team, and what style we wanted. And also we got a lot of a good body of fitness work and gym work into them as well. So I think we're bearing the fruits of that now, because if we'd been preparing for league semi-finals and finals, it would have been great. But you'll still be kind of going match to match, and when you're going match to match, you haven't got a lot of time to fix things. You're only tweaking things. So I think that opportunity has been fantastic. And even the 3 week gap between the Munster Championship and the first round against Donegal allowed us time as well. Especially as a new management, I think it's very important to get that time with the players in the training ground and to get the challenge games in as well. And during that 6 weeks, we played 5 challenge games, which gave us a wonderful opportunity, I suppose, to see more players, because we couldn't really see them, for long periods in the league. We gave lots of players runs in the league, but I think, we were able to find positions for players and see what roles suited players. And I think we've found a lot of roles now at this stage that are very suitable for our players. And, there are changes to the team from match to match, but we've a system in play at the moment that we're very happy with. And I think, that period of time has worked very well for us. And I think the players really bought into it. So look, we're very happy with the way things are progressing at the moment.
You talk about changes to the team, and I suppose Cork are blessed to have so many top-class inter-county goalkeepers, and Mayo Sullivan's got the nod in recent games, taken over from Martina O'Brien. What's thinking behind that? Because, like I said, 2 really, really good goalkeepers there.
Yeah, look, I suppose we've looked at down through the years, like Martina has, in fairness, has been there for, a long period of time. And I suppose the last time she hadn't played a championship game was, I think, maybe back in 2013 All-Ireland final. So we just, I suppose, we looked at it. We gave them both an opportunity in the Munster campaign, and I think Maeve has got the nod at the moment because, and what it's doing actually is putting serious pressure on all of them. And I suppose down through the last few years, maybe that pressure wasn't there all the time because Martina was so far ahead, and she's she has been fantastic. And in fairness to her response to not being on the team, Kieran, has been absolutely exemplary. There's no louder voice in the stand on match day, and the same at training. She is putting in a huge effort, and Maeve is there at the moment, but that's not to say Maeve will stay there because I think that's fantastic for us that we have 2, and Caoimhe Moore as well, who actually can't, who's not on the 30 at the moment, has put in a huge effort as well. So we've 3 goalies that there isn't much between, and our goalkeeping coach Ger Lombard is doing great work with them, and he finds it hard to, I suppose, to pick between them as well. So look, we're very lucky with what we have, and I suppose the pressure is on that if you're not doing exactly what you need to do, and I think the goalkeeping position has become so important in the modern game with regards to kickouts and possession, when you become like an extra defender, and I think that's huge. And I think anybody, like, if you're making mistakes, it's unfortunate. A goalkeeping mistake obviously is probably exacerbated compared to a mistake out the field, but I think the pressure that's coming on all our goalies is fantastic. It's the same as players out the field, and I think that's going forward. I think that's going to be a huge thing. Maeve is performing very well at the moment. Martina didn't do anything wrong. We just went for it that week, and I suppose Maeve has the spot at the moment, I suppose, and it's up to her to keep it. And I think the pressure is coming on all the time from Martina and from Cueva. Cueva trying to get into 30 and Martina trying to get back to the #1 jersey.
Now we talk about competition for places, Shane, and there is huge competition in the Cork team right now. And looking at the Cork attack, like it's brimming with talent. There's so many good players there. But I want to ask you about Doireann O'Sullivan. Like, she won 7 against Donegal. I think it was at 1-5. No, 1-7 against Waterford, 1-5 against Donegal. I think maybe a few weeks before that. Like, she looks to be kind of coming back to her best. Like, how important is it for Cork to have a fit and firing Doireann O'Sullivan?
Yeah, look, I think it's huge. I suppose we gave Doireann a big break after Mournabbey's campaign, and I suppose Doireann has a history of a lot of injuries. Kieran, for a young player, she's been crippled with injuries, and I suppose she'll probably suffer it from when she gets a bit older. But she's a bit of a warrior, and I think the fact that she actually has to do a curtailed training regime as well. So. Trying to get Doireann right is tough going, but I think she looks after herself so well. But I think she was vital when we went to her and asked her, was she prepared to commit for another campaign? She wasn't sure because of the injuries, and I suppose she's so honest in the fact that she felt she couldn't do all the training. Would that be okay with the rest of the panel? But the panel know how important she is. The management know how important she is. I think if Doireann is firing, there's no better player in the country. Like, I don't think she ever gets the recognition she deserves outside of Cork. With regards to her ability, and I suppose she has been very unlucky with injuries, but I think the last display, I suppose, against Waterford, when things weren't going great for us up front, I think Doireann really took the bull by the horns, and she kicked some brilliant points and leads the attack, and I think she leads by example, and she has such a big boot, as we say, on her. I think that's huge for beating mass defences, which you often get faced when you are favourites for a game. So having a fit and firing Doireann is very, very important. So we're trying to mind her. She did a couple of sessions last week. We did an internal game yesterday morning, and she was flying in that. So look, we're hoping that she can stay injury free for the rest of the season, because, as I said, she's a huge player for us.
Moving towards the business end, like I said earlier, Mayo this weekend in All-Ireland quarter-final. It's win now, win at all costs, because lose and the season is over. So what's the mood in the camp like right now? Like, this is an experienced group of players. They've been here before. They know what these games are like. Is everyone looking forward and geared up towards the weekend? Yeah, look, there was a great we had a great game yesterday morning ourselves. There's going to be a huge, I suppose, argument trying to pick a team now for Saturday, because there's so many people going for spots, and I think, but the mood is very good, and I suppose they're very determined as well. They were very disappointed, with themselves, with some aspects of the Donegal game and with some aspects of the Waterford game. They're very determined, and I think they did a very good meeting the other night with our sports performance coach as well, trying to sort out things, and they're very honest about what they're doing. And I think that, but there's an acknowledgement in the squad that we have a very good opportunity this year. We have serious talent. I suppose it's just about getting consistency in performance, and they're very driven to do that. And I think the mood is very good. There was a good atmosphere around yesterday morning. There's a good crack around the squad. We've lots of good personalities. Players who aren't on the squad, or who aren't getting game time, are still putting in a massive effort. Like, we had an internal game yesterday morning. We had 4 players who couldn't start it because there was, we had that many players fit and raring to go, because everybody wanted a jersey for next week. And I think it was the most we had training all year. They were all buzzing and ready to go, and it was a very good game. And I think, look, we're into this week now. We have 2 sessions this week, and I think all the players are in good form. They're really looking forward. They know what a big task Mayo has, because Mayo have proved a very difficult opponent for Cork down through the years. They beat them in 17 in the semi-final, and all the league games in the last few years have been very tight as well. So look, we're very aware of that, and the players are as well. We played them in a challenge game as well, maybe a month before the championship started, and it was a right game down in Limerick. So we're aware of what they can do. But I think there's a good mood in the squad, Kieran. As I said, there's a healthy competition for places, and players are buying into what we're trying to do, and there's a great unity there as well. Like you said too, Shane, there's been very good moments and patches in both the wins against Donegal and Waterford in the last couple of weeks. But do you feel there's more gears for this Cork team to reach for in the weeks ahead? Yeah, look, we hope so, Kieran. I think, when you look at those games, it was a brilliant first half against Donegal, played some scintillating football, in fairness to them. But
look, of course, certain things went wrong in the second half. There was a bit of a craziness from, some decisions, but I think we really have to learn from that. And I think that's something that they spoke about themselves about the other night, about how they park maybe some bad decision going against them, or, making a mistake, how they park that. And again, against Waterford, then we didn't start very well, I suppose. We didn't adapt to Waterford's game plan, which was very, very effective. But I think what I like about what they're doing at the moment, and even in some challenge games that we played as well, they kind of found solutions themselves. It can't always come from the sideline with you making a dramatic change or switch a system. I like the fact that the players can find solutions themselves, and I think we're trying to empower them to do that. But I think they know themselves they probably have to get a 45, 50-minute performance in from now on. And, look, it's very hard to get 60. You're going to get the opposition are going to have their purple patch. But I think it's how we deal with that period of time has to be better. And I suppose we have to reduce the amount of time that the opposition do have their purple patch. So I think in the next game, next Saturday, I think it's going to be, we're looking for that 45, 50 minutes of us controlling the game. And then how we deal with when Mayo are on top, because they will inevitably get on top. They're a good, very good team. So I think a lot of it is about down to game management. And I suppose we spoke about that all year, that we want to improve that. And hopefully the fact that we are problem solving within the games ourselves, that I think that's where the girls are learning all the time. And hopefully we can bring that into the next game and I suppose get a bit more consistency in the performance.
And finally, Shane, how much you enjoyed your first season as Cork Ladies senior football manager? Obviously, we spoke when you got the job initially, and you're looking forward to getting stuck into it. Like we're in July now, so you're well settled in. Is it as good as you thought and hoped it would be?
Yeah, look, Kieran, it's great. It's challenging. There's no point saying it's not. A lot of time goes into it, but it's very, very enjoyable and very rewarding when you see. We spoke at the start of the conversation about the effort the players go to come to training and things like that. And to see their enthusiasm when they get out of cars after long journeys, or after a long day at work, and they just bounce onto the field. They're in great form. There's never any hassle at training. We have to give out when we have to give out and things like that. But there's always a great crack there. And I love that buzz, Kieran. And I think, especially when we're doing well at the moment, now we're on a good winning run, nothing beats that. And I think, the enjoyment you get out of it and the satisfaction that you can see players improving and see players, I suppose, buying into your way of things, I think that's fantastic. And I am really enjoying it. And I can't complain. I think the effort that the players have, shown, and I think my backroom staff as well is very important. But they do. So I did surround myself with, and most of them I hadn't worked with before. And I think has been very important as well, because they've challenged me as well to improve what I do, and I challenge them. And I think, everybody's challenging each other. The players do the same. They challenge us about certain things. They want standards to improve. So I think we have a very good group of players and management that are, first of all, fantastic people, and also very, very talented. And I think, I can't but be enjoying it. To be leading that group is, you've got 50 people maybe under your wing, and I think that's fantastic experience. And I'm really enjoying it, Kieran.
And hopefully Cork's winning run will continue this weekend. The very best of luck, Shane.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
Delighted to be joined by Avril Condell of Access Credit Union, who's here to tell us a little bit about Cultivate Farm Finance. So Avril, maybe just give us a brief introduction to what Cultivate Farm Finance actually is.
So Cultivate is a collaboration of 40 credit unions throughout Ireland. West Cork has both Access Credit Union and Bantry Credit Union. The loan itself is up to 75,000 unsecured for 7 years. Is the max term, but obviously can be personalised and customised to each individual's needs. It's a great facility actually for farmers, because it covers cash flow, machinery purchases. Like there's a fertiliser crisis now, as we know. So literally anything that is required for the farm can be covered by this loan. The rate is very competitive. We can match the repayment term and the repayment frequency to each individual farmer depending on their enterprise, and you also have the benefit of the life cover that comes with the credit union loan, which I think is very important for people these days at no extra cost.
And if I'm a farmer and I'm listening to you on this podcast today, how can I get involved?
So if you're not sure of which credit union you're involved with, you can go to Cultivate Credit Union directly, which is www.cultivate-cu.ie, or you can phone 1800 839 999. And if Access is your credit union, you can contact me directly. So it's avril@accesscu.ie, or you can ring me on 085 268 2727.
The Cork County Board have acted swiftly in replacing outgoing Cork hurling manager Kieran Kingston by appointing his successor less than 2 days after it was announced he wouldn't be seeking another term in the hot seat. On Monday night, a statement from the County Board revealed that the executive would be proposing Sarsfield's man Pat Ryan for the ratification on a 3-year term. We'll be joined shortly by the Echo's Denis Hurley to discuss the appointment and to look back at Kieran Kingston's legacy as Cork boss. But Kieran, I do have one minor complaint to make before we hear from Denis. The efficiency of the County Board in their appointment process has meant that we didn't even get to dedicate one podcast episode to idle speculation. I was ready to make a convincing case as to why Davy Fitzgerald was the man to replace Kieran Kingston.
Maybe that's just why Kevin O'Donovan and co move so fast, because they know that we like to talk a bit on this podcast. And they said, you know what, we keep those bios down in West Cork quite for a small bit. But yeah, like you said, Cork GA moves so fast on this. And to be honest, it's no fun for us here in the media because we didn't get time to speculate. We didn't get the time for our think pieces and who we believe should have been the next Cork senior hurling manager. But in all seriousness, they've done a super job here, Kevin Donovan, Mark Sheehan and co. So on Sunday night, email dropped that Kieran Kingston wouldn't be seeking another term in charge of the Cork senior hurlers. 24 hours later, or less than 24 hours later, I think it was, they sent out the email that Pat Ryan was being proposed, and then on Tuesday night at the county board meeting, it was rubber stamped. So in the space of a couple of days, signed, sealed and delivered, and we have a new Cork senior hurling manager, Pat Ryan, and there's no doubting that he is the right man for the job. As a player, he won All-Ireland and Munster under-21 medals. He won a National League medal with Cork in 97. He also was won Munster and All-Ireland senior hurling medals in 1999. He won 2 county titles with Stars as a player, and he also managed his home club to victories in 2012 and 2014. And obviously his work as Cork under-20 hurling manager is well documented too. He led the county to All-Ireland titles 2020-21. So that was 2 in a row. So he has the credentials. He knows the talent in the county. He's a Cork hurling man. He's someone of a high caliber. He's very well respected by players, by the board, by supporters, and within the county. And he's the right man for the job right now. And it's just interesting, Jack. He's taken over Cork hurlers at a time where, and I asked Denis about this quite soon, like, where do the Cork hurlers stand in the pecking order? If you look at the semi-finals last weekend, we saw obviously Kilkenny were really impressive. They blew Clare away, but then we saw Galway really put it up to Limerick, who are the kingpins at the moment. So there's trying to see where Cork come in the rankings right now is probably quite difficult, considering Cork were All-Ireland finalists last year. But maybe that's a conversation for a different day, because all that Cork GA and Cork hurling fans are talking about now is Pat Ryan, is the new Cork senior hurling manager. But as I asked Denis Hurley straight away, how come Cork moved so fast and took the fun away from us journalists? Much like London buses, Cork GA statements come along 2 at a time. The first on Sunday night informed us that Kieran Kingston would not be seeking a further term in his role as Cork senior hurling manager. And then on Monday night, another statement to tell us that Pat Ryan was being proposed for the role. Joined now by Denis Hurley from the Evening Echo to have a chat about this. This story's moved very fast since Sunday, Denis. Have you been surprised how fast Cork GA have moved to fill the role left by Kieran Kingston?
Hi, Kieran. Yeah, I've been incredibly surprised. Like in the old days, you would have had the announcement that the manager wouldn't be seeking a new term. That might be a month or so after the last game. Then the next county board meeting would be about deciding on the committee to find a new manager. Then the next meeting would be about their findings, and then you might have something maybe a month after that. But it has been, like you say, very surprising how quickly and neatly and everything it's all been done. I think the most important thing is that the decision made has been a popular one. Mm-hmm. I think with a lot of candidates in these things, you'd have supporters of various people who might have a chance of getting the job. But with most of those, you might have as many detractors. Whereas with Pat Ryan, I don't think you'd find too many people who would feel that this isn't a good appointment. He's won 2 county championships as manager with Sarsfields, and then he progressed on to the Cork under-20 role, having been involved in the senior setup during Kieran Kingston's first term in charge as a coach and a selector. Then he became the under-20 manager. He helped in Cork's long way for an All-Ireland at that grade, and then repeated it 6 weeks later, which was an incredible feat, I think. And so he will have had experience of a lot of the players he'll be working with. He's well respected by the rest of the panel. And I think he showed with the under-20s, he's the kind of guy who surrounds himself with other good people. You'd expect that to continue. And I think it's as positive an appointment as you could have hoped for once it became known that Kieran Kingston wouldn't be continuing in the job.
Given that Cork GA moves so quickly, we don't need 24 hours of speculation. We didn't even have time in this week's Southern Star to look at the possible contenders for the job. But the one name that was popping up in what lists did appear was Pat Ryan. Like, was he the number one man for the choice? Was it the obvious choice here to take over from Kingston?
I don't know what you use the word obvious. I think he would have been a lot of people's first choice, but there might have been a sense maybe that he wasn't keen on it himself, or it wasn't known how keen he was, and that was a bit of a caveat, and that's maybe why other names were appearing as well. But I think definitely, all things being equal, a straw poll of Cork hurling people would have had him as a clear favourite. So that's why I think from that point of view, it is as good as could be hoped for. Like I spoke to John Considine, a former club teammate of Pat, and a guy who's been involved in intercounty management teams this morning for a piece. And obviously, as a fellow Sarsman, he's probably a bit biased, but he was trying to put that to one side and still say that Pat was the best appointment that could have been made by the county board. And I think definitely they do deserve applause for that and for how neatly it's been, because I texted a colleague on Sunday night and I said, here we go now, another few weeks of speculation with the roll eyes emoji. And I texted the same person Monday night, with the relief emoji at the fact that we were spared the usual merry-go-round.
The fact too that Pat Ryan is a 3-year term is coming in, is that important? Like, usually we see 2-year terms in GA, but this is a 3-year term. So just having that security, 3 years is important too for both Pat Ryan, his managing team when he puts it in place, but also the players as well, to know that they'll have Pat for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. You're never going to kind of build something from nothing. Nothing. It's probably unfair. Cork did get to the quarterfinals this year and the final last year, but it's very rare that a manager will come in and enjoy instant success. You need the opportunity to just bed in and acclimatise to senior intercounty hurling and get used to the players you're working with and the management team. And I think definitely the 3-year term is a huge positive in that regard. It allows for the lack of a need for instant success, shall we say, although of course things being what they are, you'll have people always who are expecting that instant success, but I think most right-minded people, shall we say, will understand that it is a process that takes time. So 3 years is definitely a good figure to land on from that point of view. Who he gets in hasn't, as selectors and coaches, that hasn't been announced yet. Mm-hmm. But I would have faith in Pat that that the people appointed will be well regarded and well chosen.
Given how fast this tour has moved, like we said a couple of times already, almost the chance to reflect on Kieran Kingston's time in charge, like that's almost been put to one side, because now it's all about the Pat Ryan story and he's coming in as manager and so on. But just on Kingston for a second, what do you think his legacy is, and where he leaves this Cork senior hurling team right now?
Well, if Cork had their shooting sights a bit better against Galway, and if they hadn't given away the kind of goals that you wouldn't expect to be given away, we could easily have had the case that Cork would have been going in to an All-Ireland semi-final against Limerick on Saturday, and obviously they'd been massive underdogs, but it wouldn't have been beyond the bounds of possibility for that to be happening. And so it probably looks like a disappointing year to lose at that stage, but Cork weren't far away from making it to another semi-final, and it shows that obviously Limerick are out in front, but Cork I don't think are too far away from anyone else in the chasing pack. And Kieran, when Kieran came in 2015 first, Cork were kind of at low ebb, and 2016, his first year in charge, was definitely very disappointing, but he built it from then. He brought in Mark Coleman, Darragh Fitzgibbon, Luke Meade, and kind of refresh things, and Cork won the next 2 months of titles. The second one was with John Myler after Kieran had stepped aside, and I think it was telling that when Kieran did come back, it was because the players there wanted him back, and the talk was that the players were keen for him to continue as well this time around. So it's definitely reflects well on a manager when the players are big fans of his. And I think Kieran definitely created a culture, a kind of a united spirit within the camp. And unfortunately it didn't end with Cork Cork ending that long drought for an All-Ireland, but you have to understand that we're in an era of a dominant Limerick team, and there's other strong counties there at the moment. It wasn't so long ago that we were looking at the possibility of Cork ending the year with nothing. After loss to Clare and Limerick at the start of the year. People were writing the obituaries then, and they bounced back. And I think unless you had a good management and a good strong ethos between the players and management, that wouldn't have happened. So there was definitely a good spirit in the camp, and an ability to kind of to bounce back well from disappointment. And just because Cork didn't win an All-Ireland on Kieran Kingston's watch, you can't all be laying it at his door. There are other factors at play, but I think overall Kieran probably felt that he had given it as much as he could, because it is such a massive commitment to be an intercounty manager in this day and age, and it just takes so much out of you. So that's probably why he felt that he had given it as good a crack as he could, and he needs to live his life now as well.
It's probably hard to know, Denis, where Cork stand in the pecking order right now. Like you said, Limerick are out in front; they're the dominant force right now. But if you look at the semi-finals, the weekend just gone, Galway gave Limerick a hell of a fright, and then the other semi-final, Kilkenny just blew Clare away. So there's obviously Limerick, and there's a chasing pack. Would you put Cork in that chasing pack?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'd have to, when Cork got to the league final this year, things looked very rosy, shall we say? And it just shows that every result, good or bad, creates an extreme reaction. I wouldn't fear for Cork winning against anyone else apart from Limerick. We'll put it that way. They showed that last year that they were able to beat Clare, beat Dublin, beat Kilkenny. They lost to Galway this year by a point, having had an awful day in terms of their own shooting and giving away two avoidable goals. And they beat Waterford. So it's definitely fairly even if you took Limerick away. Obviously, trying to get up to Limerick's level is the next question. But I give Pat Ryan as good a chance as anyone in terms of trying to bridge that gap, especially with the under-20s from the last few years coming on stream, and with experience of working with them on his part.
I'm looking at the Cork GA statement that came up Monday night, and Kevin O'Donovan said, Pat's appointment will be another clear example of our desire to provide a pathway to managers and coaches throughout club and county systems. So there was never a chance here that Cork were going to look outside the county, Dennis, was there?
No, absolutely not. It's not the done thing in Cork, rightly or wrongly. I'm sure I'm sure you can appreciate that. Like, given that it's the same in terms of the Kerry football manager's role. It's there's a sense of pride with it, I suppose, maybe misplaced pride in this day and age, but it would take something very drastic, I think, for that to change. And like you say, reading from that statement, like there are a lot of good coaches in the system now that have, we'll say, put in their time and probably are hopeful of using that as a springboard to advance up the ladder, which it's a good thing. It on the one hand, it gets people involved at Rebel Oak and kind of ensures that the younger players are getting good are receiving good coaching, and then it benefits the coaches that if they do well, they know that they'll be rewarded if they want to go further up the ladder. So it should provide benefits on both sides of it. And like if things do go well with Pat, it's just another endorsement of that approach.
Oh, great stuff. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, Denis. Appreciate your time.
No problem, Kieran. Thanks a lot.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Okay, Kieran, before we wrap up this week's edition of the Star Sport podcast, we're going to quickly preview this week's Southern Star Sports section. So what do readers across West Cork have to look forward to this Thursday?
For all our listeners and readers out there, Jack, all I can say to them is forget about Love Island, forget about Castlemore, forget about Luca and Gemma and India and Demi and all the goings on, forget about Andrew and Tasha doing what they are doing in their separate villas at the moment, because this Thursday it should all be about the Southern Star Sports section, because as good as Love Island is, the Southern Star Sport Weekly is better. We're guaranteed entertainment, and we don't disappoint again this week. We've a cracking paper on the way, Jack.
Well, Kieran, okay, we're going to preview the paper in a minute, but the fact that you've just outed yourself as a massive Love Island fan is something we can't brush over. And I will say I'm not a huge fan of Love Island myself, but I'm not here to judge. I do spend most of my days scrolling through Twitter and Instagram, so I'm aware of the storylines, the names, some of the characters involved. And the ones I want to ask you about then are Ronan Keating's son, who's found himself in the villa, and also Michael Owen's daughter. Are these some of the main characters? Are you a fan of young Keating?
Let's clarify this first. An important clarification. I'm not a massive fan of Love Island. I use it as escapism from reality. When you're working 12-hour days every day, Jack, for years on end, all you want is a bit of escapism from the grind and the grunt of it, and that's what Love Island is. So it's just a bit of fun, really. So where we are right now, we're probably 3 or 4 weeks into it. The boys are still in the villa. The girls have got off to Castlemore to get their heads turned, while back at the villa, the boys' heads are being turned left, right, and centre. So even at this stage, it almost beggars belief that the lads would understand that this is a reality TV show and everything they do is being recorded and will be played back to them at some stage. So, like you're right, yeah, Ronan Keating's son Jack is there. He's one of the newbies who's been parachuted in to try and turn the girls' heads. I'll be quite honest, and I can't think of the apt Ronan Keating song to describe it, but it'll be short and sweet for, I think, Jack Keating. He's not going to last too long, but Michael Owen's daughter is one of the established people inside her, Gemma, so she's probably one of the, I don't say favourites to go quite long, but considering what the boys are up to right now, it looks like she could be in there for the long haul. But as good as it is, Jack, it's not as good as Thursday Southern Star.
Go on then. Let's jump straight into it. What are you proposing readers turn to first when they open their sports section on Thursday?
Okay, there's a load in there right now. So I'm going to start with first. The Cork City Sports were on Tuesday night, and 2 home favourites, 2 West Cork superstars of athletics, Dara McElhinney and Phil Healy, turned on the style. And Dara is in top form at the moment, and he set a new Irish under-23 record at the Cork City Sports. So you can check out Thursday Star for all that. We also have a 2-page special on the Carbery footballers. They have a huge game on Thursday night against Avondhu in the final of the unseeded section of the Premier Senior Football Championship. So, as well as a report from last week's Battle of West Cork when Carberry beat Beara, we also have a very good interview with Colm O'Driscoll. He's the Carberry senior football captain, and he just still can't wrap his head around why players in the division will not line out for Carberry. He makes the point, he's with Tig McCorrick, a junior club. The reality is that they won't ever get up to be senior. We're not in his lifetime. So he has the chance to play senior with Carberry. So why not take it? So that's well worth reading in that. Also, looking at the junior action, St. Oliver Plunkets, they were defeated in the County Junior B football semi-final on Tuesday night by Father Niels. We have a full report and pictures from that. While Randall Oak Hurlers, that great success story locally, it's still going. They're back into another County Junior B hurling final. Did a super win last weekend, so we have a full match report on that. Also, we've news as well. Camogie, Jack. Things were going so well for Cork Camogie through to the All-Ireland semi-final with one game to spare, but they've been hit by a couple of blows in the last week or so. So in the skiing all-star, Orla Cronin has opted to withdraw from the panel, so she won't be involved for the rest of the championship, and that's a big blow for Cork because Orla, as we know, is one of the best players, not alone in the county, but in the country. But she's had her issues with injuries this year, so she's decided just to step back from the county panel for now. And then to add to Cork's troubles, Aisling Thompson, the talismanic midfielder, was sent off after the final whistle in their defeat to Tipperary last weekend. So Cork will be sweating it about, will Aisling be available for the upcoming All-Ireland semi-final. Also, Keith Cronin, he won the Moonraker Rally in Ballyvourney last weekend. Ideal preparation for the next round of the British Rally Championship this weekend. So we have that in Thursday's Southern Star. We also, my last word column, just to tease it out a small bit, is on the Clonakilty senior footballers. We're just 2 weeks out now, I think, from the throw-in to the County Football Championships. And Clonakilty, last year's county finalists, are coming off the back of a really poor league campaign where they finished second from bottom in their group in Division 1. They only won 2 games out of 9. They lost 7. So I'm just, I suppose, having a look at the lie of the land to see where Clon are right now ahead of a huge championship for them, because they're in the group with Denis, they're in with Castlehaven, they're in with Newcestown, and they're in with Nemo Rangers. So that's an interesting think piece on that. So there's that and a lot more in Thursday Southern Star.
And no matter what they tell you, no matter what they say, if you can't make it to the shops on Thursday, you can subscribe to the Southern Star online. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and read the Southern Star on your computer, tablet or smartphone for less than €2 per week. What an absolute bargain. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast this week. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Yes, I'm buzzing with that one. Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.